Hi, welcome to Ellen Movie. Today we came to see a sci-fi movie, Monsters, The Dark Continent. NASA has been studying extraterrestrials since humans discovered them, but a satellite crash allowed these extraterrestrials to spread to the Middle East. The US military then went there to fight alien monsters, but the indiscriminate bombing of warplanes destroyed the homes of locals. This has also led to more and more insurgents beginning to fight the US military. Michael grew up in a different foster family. For him, Frankie, who grew up wandering the streets, was his real family. Growing up, Michael and Frankie's together to join the army. Williams and Inkalar were met in the army, and now the four of them are about to travel to the Middle East to fight the monsters. But as the helicopter crossed the infected area of the Middle East, several people were stunned by the sight. More than a dozen giant, strange-looking alien giants are slowly walking in the desert. One of the monsters also suddenly wanted to catch the helicopter. Fortunately, the driver dodged in time, only did not fall into the hands of the monster. And after the helicopter flew away, a team of warplanes then bombed the area. All monsters were wiped out in an instant. The helicopter then arrived safely at the base. Frater also told them that their team's first priority was not to destroy the monsters, it is to destroy the rebels in the city. After that, Frater led his team on patrol in the city. Although the strange environment made the team feel nervous, but the presence of children has made everyone relax a lot. That night, the team arrived at a suspected rebel stronghold. After checking the house, it was discovered that there were no bombs. The head of the household is also a farmer, and the farmer was very dissatisfied with the US military, because his family has lost all his lives. But the US military neither drove the monsters away nor quelled the fighting. But just then, gigantic creatures suddenly came near the team. Frater immediately ordered the soldiers to fire the grenade. The monster was soon killed. Back in camp, Frater was furious with the recruits, because they lost their guard after being surrounded by a group of children during the day. If there is a suicide attack, the whole team will be wiped out. Although in front of the soldiers, Frater was a grumpy leader, but outside of the war, the voice of her daughter was the only support. The next day, the team was given a new assignment. 5 hours earlier, a small team in the Altai Desert Infection Zone had lost contact with the base. Now they had to cross dense minefields to find and rescue the four comrades. On the way, the team saw several little monsters running, but they did not attack the squad. It was the leading chariot that accidentally killed the monster. Just as the players were shouting in excitement, their armored vehicle suddenly rolled into the mines buried on the road. The blasted William escaped from the car, but soon he broke his legs by a landmine on the road. At this time, the rebels ambushed around also began to shoot at them. The team had to use the car as a cover and immediately rescued the seriously injured William. On the other hand, Frater saw no survivors in the armored vehicle, so he hid the rest of the team into the building. The soldiers were holding onto William as they resisted the enemy's attack, but William eventually died of excessive blood loss. This left his comrades in great grief. Frater, who has already experienced many battles, he moved the team quickly. Michael and others wanted to leave with William's body, but was rebuffed by Frater, because feelings on the battlefield will only kill themselves. Then the drones came to reinforce, and the four escaped the enemy's siege. But just as a few people were preparing for the body, Inkalar is killed by a sniper. Frankie also got a shot. Immediately there was a number of insurgents not far away. Frater could only surrender with the team, but the rebels' leaders apparently did not want to let them go. He also had Michael and Frater watch the wounded Frankie bleed to death. It made Michael miserable, and that night, the monster came to the neighborhood again. The rebels were ready to leave with they too. But Frater, who had been in the war, took the opportunity to kill an enemy, and loosened the tie for Michael. And Michael happened to meet the leader when he left, so he then picked up the iron bar and killed the man. Revenge for his good brother, Frankie. After that, they two who escaped the claws got on a motorcycle, continued to advance towards the mission site in the vast Gobi. But on the way, they saw a fallen monster. Next to it was a school bus that had been bombarded. Michael soon found a surviving teenager in it. Frater didn't want the teenager to suffer anymore, so he decided to let him rest in peace. But Michael couldn't accept it, and he stopped Frater and carried the teenager away. But just then 3 locals suddenly came from a distance. The other side found that they too rescued the teenager. They were brought back to the camp together. Michael and Frater finally enjoyed a pleasant day with the hospitality of the locals. That night, Michael arrived at the funeral of the dead children. The giant monster reappeared, but the locals were not afraid of it. Monsters also did not attack humans. Instead, the sowing out of the embryo spores. Countless spores form a magnificent ray of light. This left Michael stunned. The next day, Michael returned to the camp, but Frater was furious at Michael's departure, because he needed Michael to obey orders and rescue the 4 comrades together, so they too went on the road. On the way, Michael saw a little monster that had just been born and slowly flew out of the box, and it's hidden in the desert. Michael and Frater finally arrived at the mission site, but they saw a group of children playing with guns. Frater asked the child where he got the gun. The teenager took they two to a room full of corpses, and they are they two who want to rescue. Such a tragedy caused Frater to collapse instantly. He then raised his gun and pressed the locals to ask who had killed them. But helpless, language does not understand, the other side simply cannot communicate with him. And the Desanic Frater shot an innocent man directly. This left Michael on the side having to pick up his gun and point it at Frater. Just as Frater was about to kill again, Michael shot him. Frater knew he was dead soon after, so he slowly took off his combat uniform, and at last fell in the desert. And in the sunset afterglow of the background, the huge new monster is constantly pulling huge limbs from the ground. It also found a dragon-like skull, and in the rolling dust gave a deafening roar. Monsters: The Dark Continent was released in 2014 as a sequel. The film continues the style of the previous work. Compared to the 2010 Monster, The Dark Continent's budget is much more. The special effects of the film are also better. The full picture of the behemoth was finally clearly revealed. In the film, satellite debris falls into the Middle East. Alien monsters are also beginning to spread around the world. The United States defends its own interests, continuously send various forces to fight extraterrestrial stalks. But after careful examination we found out, monsters don't really have any power in the face of human weapons. At the beginning of the film, there is even a scene in which a human forced a little monster to fight a puppy. The monster that finally killed the puppy was killed by humans. The worldview of weak meat and strong food is also spread out. But Michael had thought he was fighting monsters on the front line. But Michael and his team were not attacked by monsters along the way. Their enemies are also so-called rebels. But think about it, where did the rebels come from? It's because the US military's crackdown on monsters that has reached local residents. Michael and his friends were sent thousands of miles away to defend the so-called national interest. But what did they end up with? Except Michael, all his friends are died. And throughout the process, Michael has only seen displaced civilians, and saw the innocent child who was killed by the American warplane. Of course, there are escapes, and no non-nemesis. The sacrifice of the soldiers also suddenly lost its meaning. It's like the last crazy Frater. He was supposed to be the guardian of the bloodbath. But when he faced his comrades who had died in the hand of human, he could only ask himself again and again, why is he here? Anti-war sentiment also broke out at this moment. And the monster also seems to symbolize the Middle East's indigenous culture and beliefs in the film. So when Michael discovers a new monster rising above the horizon, he also seems to see the war doomed. Because people's faith cannot be destroyed. It will only give birth to another, more powerful monster.